Welcome to Liberty Awakened. I'm your host, Chris A. Patriot. Today, we're going to present videos from American Intelligence Media along with George Webb. These videos are talking about senior executive services. What's important here? They don't see things eye to eye, and that's okay. First up, American Intelligence Media presents a response to a report put out by George Webb. And then we'll play what started the response from George Webb. And then we'll bring back, again, American Intelligence Media, looking at the cabinet as well as the senior executive services. And then we'll close it up with a response by George Webb. What's important here? Political discourse, Patriots discourse, alternative media discourse. This is what is needed to move our nation forward. It is the alternative to what lamestream media does in regards to they're very good at groupthink. We can turn on any channel, any type of news media outlet, and you'll hear the same thing, maybe a few different words, but it's generally groupthink going down the same rabbit holes without much thinking or without much deep knowledge. What we have here in the alternative media spectrum is two patriots giving their points of view in regards to how they see the senior executive services working, how they see it being disbanded, and it's okay they don't get along because they give us the information for us to ferret out, for us to go out and check what they are saying and hold them to the truth. So enjoy.
This is Betsy and Thomas at the American Intelligence Media, where we have been irritating the heck out of the people in the alt media landscape. So if you will look in the description box, you're going to see a video where George Webb is calling us out on our interpretation on the SES and also the DOJ SS 500, as we call them. So without further ado, if you haven't seen that video, watch that first. And Thomas, what do you have to say to George Webb?
Well, we'll get to old Georgie Porgy in a minute. Let's first just talk about the takedown of the SES.
But really, we mean the American SS.
It is the SS. Mm-hmm. Now, it's happening. We have reports, and we don't usually listen to inside stuff, but it's pouring over us like a tsunami. The inside of every federal agency at the top, those bosses are trying to get out and retire. Well, why are they doing that? Because we just pointed out that if they can get to retirement, it's permanent. They get a permanent retirement. The top SES people, especially the Council of 500 Department of Justice lawyers, sorry, I stuttered. That may be the first time I've stuttered. The Department of Justice, oh, that's right. Does Mr. Magoo stutter? Well, that's who runs the department. Maybe that's what makes me stutter. Those 500, the Council of 500 that do the second review. Oh, by the way, we want to thank some people in just a second. That's who we're going after, and we'll hear as I analyze George Webb's response in just a second. But I threw down the gauntlet yesterday and said, anyone who wants to debate me on this issue, me personally, not the conclave, I'm leaving the conclave over there eating
cheesecake
and drinking their cappuccinos. You should have never got that cappuccino machine. Betsy, look at them. They just lie around, like video game players, just trying to bust and implode the evil of the world.
Well, it's working because...
And disperse all conspiracy theories and name the people.
Well, then let's start naming names.
Well, let me first off warm up. I'm not warmed up yet. I want to thank those people who tried to point out that I made a mistake. And then, as you know, I responded to you and said, no, I didn't make a mistake, but I did thank you because of the following. And I'm totally sincere about this. We are like an open source. We are crowdsourcing. We want you to send us your ideas, especially if they're ideas that move the agenda forward. Betsy and her team analyze all of that. Anyone with anything to move the ball forward is what we're about. But when people come up and say, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, don't throw the good people in SES out with the bad people, caca. I'm going to, again, explain why that is complete nonsense. All right, so thank you, folks who said that the Senior Executive Institute doesn't exist, that it actually is part of the Office of Personnel Management, and it is a not-for-profit organization, and that it actually trains the G16, 17, and 18, which is above the general schedule of G1 through 15, They actually train in this facility, and the reason this person knew this is because they lived near it, and they watched these people come and go, and they know the story. What is that place? Yes, it is not a government agency. The government cannot promote corporate takeover of America. They use the University of Virginia and many other universities, and the same MK Ultra tests which they brought forward and showed me, the very documents that they use for the testing. You can't get into the SES unless you can be manipulated. Period. You have to take the tests that say you can be manipulated.
Is that why every time I see pictures of them, they look so vanilla? I don't know how to describe it. They just look like brainwashed.
These are beta boys. You heard of beta boys? These
but also the women too.
They're they're lower than beta. They're omega. They're the omega children in the class. They're the ones who get paid the most. And when we just heard George Webb say that Mad Dog Mattis should be able to pull from a pool of talent to put them into any SES position he wants in the DOD, is he out of his... Sorry, George, I don't think that's a good idea. And the reason is because those people aren't bound by the Uniform Code of Military Justice. They are the shadow government, as you proposed and promoted for the last week or so, when you put up the keystone of the senior executive service, and also right along with the idea that they are the fifth column. They're the enemy within, and we've proven that. We've put out now 33,000 documents for anyone to go in and mine. We've summarized it for everyone. We've created search engines, and we know for a fact that not only is the SES internal top bosses trying to get out, because we have now recommended, and George, I want to correct you, had you listened to the 5 tapes we've done on SES, the first one said the same thing you said, which is move their pay back to the general schedule, to G1 through G15, and make it merit pay, and make these people at the top, who are the senior executive service, senior executive everything, senior intelligence service, and in the DOJ, that's the D, and then there's the DI, DOD, which you point out, the director of intelligence for the department. Well, guess who that is, George? And George, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to drop some crumbs here. So all you Qs listening out there, dig this. Who do you think the DI, DOD runs? That's right, the Global Engagement Center. Who runs that? Oh, that's right, the Board of Broadcasting Governors that governs every broadcast in America, including everything you put on the internet. That's the reason it's legal for them to steal all your Facebook and all your Google. It's perfectly legal. Your entire Facebook profile, anyone can buy it for $3.50. We showed you how to go there and get it yourself just a few weeks ago. Anyone can get your profile, and we have a Zuckerberg who's an idiot. I don't think he's ever shown up a day for work. He doesn't know how to write code. He doesn't even know this is going on. So what does he say? Yes, I need someone to come in and regulate me. That's what's really going on. Who is that? That's the SES. Who makes those contracts with Facebook? That would be the NSA and CIA. The CIA has an SES contract with Facebook. Who doesn't know this? Who doesn't know these things?
Well, can we go back? Can we go back to George Webb with this Board of Broadcasting Governors?
Because I dropped the crumbs. I'm going to leave people to pick it up. George, if you wish to debate me, don't just put out an audio giving your version, which then tries to override what we are saying here. And it's nice that you use all kinds of names for me. Thomas Paine and the ass of the globalists is my name. And if you really want to say that I'm wrong, then you need to get your facts straight. When you say that the SES, the senior executives, should go back to the regular pay scale instead of being given the Holman Clause and getting $1, which Trump snuck into the omnibus. Why do you think Trump allowed an omnibus budget to be snuck in past his line item veto ability? Because he snuck in everything he wanted, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. But one thing he for sure snuck in is the Holman Clause. He can now pay any federal employee he wants to get rid of, and this has happened in history a few times, and it's a very old clause, and it's completely legal, and no one can stop him. He simply can pay all SES members $1 under the Holman Clause. They'll all go away, the entire SS.
You mean those 500 DOJ attorneys up there? They could just be paid $1 a year?
And not receive their benefits,
well,
correct.
That sounds really good, folks. So, let's push that out.
Now, George, why would you say that isn't a good idea?
Well, wait a
Why
minute.
would you say you have breakfast with these
there
people?
you go.
Why would you say that you just had breakfast and these are good people with G13s, 14s, 15s? Why would you say they're under pressure 4 times? Why would you say pressure, 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 and then you kind of ramble off in your very sanguine, hyper butterfly way and start talking about Pentagon powers and a guy who wants to save money on pencils and the DO and don't look at the DOJ, look at the DOD, but don't look at the DOD, look at the DIDOD, look at the Okay, if you look there, guess what you're going to see? You're going to see an agency that pays for propaganda and is perfectly legal. The NDAA allows, since 2013 when Obama added it, the Board of Broadcasting Governors, and now specifically the Global Engagement Center, which gets $80 million a year, which last year they used 0 of, but the year before they used $60 million to rig the election to the Global Engagement Center. That's who the Russians were. That's who bought the ads. That's who posted those ads. All the anti-Trump stuff was posted by what would you call people who want to take you down the wrong path. Let's just say that.
Okay,
So
I want to say something though, because what will you have to be careful of in the alternative media space? You've got to ask who are paying these guys. When you see some of them traveling here and there, packing up their camera equipment with the nice studios, who's behind it? Now, I'm not going to name names, Thomas. I'm just going to give everyone a heads up that we've already started research on some of these people, and you'll be very surprised. And so Thomas is suggesting that you connect the dots, listen to both videos, and you'll be able to figure out where that trail ends. Correct?
yes, and anyone in the alternative media that comes across the concept of SES, whether it comes from us or anyone else that doesn't simply Google it and find out that they are the shadow government that already has taken over the government, is just not thinking clearly. I don't know what to say, but they're certainly not on the side of the Second American Revolution. They're certainly not on the side of trying to stop the coup d'etat against President Trump through Mueller, Comey, Rosenstein. Oh, let's see. Rosenstein, SES, McCabe, SES, Christopher Wray, SES, Bruce Orr, SES. Okay, these are the deep state that you call the deep state. If you want to kill the deep state, kill the shadow government by using the Holman Clause, pay them $1 a year. This next budget goes, it has a 2-year span for the NDAA. So what I'm about to tell you is it's going to happen. And so all the people in SES at the top that are running to get their retirement so they think that they can get into that, I would recommend you do that. It is your last hope. And I also tell you the following. Dan Coates has already given his report on how to stop surveillance in America, obviously. And Trump must have accepted it. And then what did Trump do? He declared a national emergency in December. And then what did he do yesterday? He claimed the clauses of the omnibus budget, which nobody seemed to notice, that he built himself in billions and billions of dollars to do exactly what he wants. The 70 billion raise, and there's so much slush put in there, and he, as the director of the military, can take out a drop of that, which is usually wasted on you should know Lockheed Martin, who steals at Boeing, Raytheon, DynCorp. Hello?
Now the $21 trillion lady's going to get upset if you bring that up.
This time that he got, what did he say he wanted? These lies that you see on Breitbart, on Drudge, which are parading as alternative news. Read to the bottom of the article, which are actually written in some cases by their own writers. When you get to the bottom, it says the opposite of what the headline says and tells you the truth. So here's the truth, folks. He asked for $2.5 billion. He asked for $25 billion over 5 years. Nobody ever points that out. It's $2.5 billion for the first year. I think it even came down once he saw the reality. What did he get? 1.6. But what you don't understand, and what I guess nobody seemed to notice, not what you don't understand, what the idiots in government don't seem to understand, that he just pulled the wool over their eyes with this budget, is he's been fixing the wall since he came into power. He has used his executive authority, which is to secure the borders, And he simply pulled money. Remember the $9 billion in telephones that were sitting there for minority people to get burner phones so they could do drug deals, which Obama set aside as a slush fund for Hillary? He has that, doesn't he? And what have I told you again and again and again? People don't seem to get this. Let me finish the story. First off, he didn't build a wall in San Diego. He simply secured the border already with those funds. What did that cause? 95% decrease coming over that border. And what does Jerry Brown, the sanctuary state governor, want for San Diego, a sanctuary city? He wants Trump to build the wall there. And Trump said, I'm not building the wall there. He doesn't need to build a wall. He's using the security provisions already there. He's declared a national emergency, and he's already declared an emergency against human trafficking. That comes across the southern border. Opioids comes across the southern border. Heroin comes across the southern border. On and on. Everything he named in his December 2017 national emergency, he has now got the power to do because he claimed emergency funds that are not usually used, but because Obama set up 13 specific executive orders, and the last order even included coronal mass ejections, which you can't even see. So there could be a coronal mass ejection, and essentially martial law could be put on America through the executive branch. They can take your food, your guns, your bank account, everything. That's what the law says. So Trump has now been told by people, reluctantly, by the globalist he fired. Do you think Gary Cohen believed that he was in charge? Yes, he did. Why? Trump let him tell him all the globalist secrets, then he fired him. And who did he put in charge? One of his best old-time friends who runs a tough, very tight ship. Then what did he do? Rex Tillerson was his enemy. He had to have him for show. Rex did nothing to clean out the State Department. Nothing. Not anything. Nothing. He was a zero. All he was for appearance. Who did he replace him with? The person who stopped the CIA activities. The CIA wars around the world have ended. Anybody notice that? No more war in Sudan? Where's the war in Libya? Where's the war that we created in Egypt? Where's the war we were conducting in Somalia? Where's the war in Syria? Where's the war in Iraq? Now we've focused on Afghanistan and Somalia, and we have burnt the poppy fields, and we have burnt the opium factories. And now, if you're paying attention, peace is being proffered in Afghanistan the first time since Russia entered there decades ago. No one has gotten peace in Korea. No one has gotten peace to talk in Afghanistan. No one has brought a ceasefire like has happened in Syria. No one has brought Turkey to show who it really is so that we can have them withdraw from NATO before they get us into World War III. No one has actually brought the actions of the Zionist Israeli government to the fore and called them out and yet still supported them against Islamic terrorism. No one has put a dent in Wahhabist, Salafists, and Hezbollah, Hamas, all the radical Islamic things, all being put into. Now, how is he doing this? He declared a national emergency, folks. He now is using, as we have said, and this has now come to evidence in reports all over the news, exactly as we said he should do. He should take his intelligence from only one department, which it seems that that's what he's doing, the Treasury Department. He's been using who? U.S. Marshals, exactly who we told him to use. We think very much alike, Mr. President and the conclave. We told him to use these to go after people economically. So when he declared war in this national emergency, he declared war also economically and for trafficking, for drugs, for opioids, for every crime there is. He has declared a national emergency against it. He can do whatever he wants. So what's happened? The U.S. Marshals have entered into, with his executive order naming, 16 or 19 people overtly and 39 people. No, we went and looked. There are over 1,000 people on his list right now who have full sanctions, and the U.S. Marshals are enforcing this through the U.S. Treasury Department, and most people don't know who they are. You printed that list, Betsy. So, as we said, as soon as we take control of the U.S. Treasury, we will take control of the debt. It will be wiped out because the Fed is fake. We will seize the central bank's gold. Better than that, they're shifting it around to cover all their arrears right now and putting it back where it's supposed to be. They're selling 1/3 of their stock. That's the reason the stock market is going up and down. The entire assets, 1/3 of the assets of the central banks are being dumped onto the stock market so that they can make money and get out. Get all the money you want because we're going to take it from you.
That's right.
We are going to seize it.
Yes, we are.
We are going to audit it. We are going to take back what is ours. And we are going to
right.
put the criminals in jail for the Fed.
Including the bankers.
That's 100-year attempted takeover.
Yes.
And at this point they have. Do you realize that all of the taxes collected in America in a year does not pay the percentage debt we owe for the money that we supposedly borrow from the Fed? Complete nonsense. Trump can wipe that out with the blink of an eye. He's building the wall. You people who think Trump is an idiot, you are so wrong. You know how many hundreds of miles have been secured at the border now without building a wall? I can't tell you because I don't want to draw too much attention to it, but I will tell you this. 75% of the illegal immigrants have ended and 95% in the one place he secured it the most in San Diego.
Well, if you build a wall in the other places and you just keep building and building, it kind of squeezes the flow down to one area that can be controlled.
Completely. And he has now all kinds of ways to get those funds because of the national emergency, which nobody seems to be addressing. And the NDAA was approved for 2 years. He can do this now for 2 years. That's unprecedented. So his plan is astounding. The only place you hear of it is here. And that's because we are willing to tell you part of it, but we're not willing to tell you the rest because we don't want to disrupt it. But we will report, as we have always said, nothing from a whistleblower, nothing from the inside, open source, everything. Simple logic, folks. You could do this yourself. People are doing it all over. And for those alternative news sites, all I have to say is no one picked up the gauntlet. It looks like now everyone's running with it. Let's destroy the SDS by asking Trump to enact the Holman Act. $1 a year, get the lawyer stench out of the swamp.
I was very impressed, Thomas, when I went to George Webb's video on this subject, which is in the link. The link is in the description box. The comments were amazing. People have educated themselves on this issue. They're holding their own. They're giving proper citations. Boy, this truth community is just rocking, Thomas.
I only read one that you showed me, and that was Thomas Paine is being fed information from a mole in Las Vegas.
That's right. Well, I wanted you to read the legitimate ones.
No, the guys in the conclave do look like moles, so you got part of that right.
Okay,
they don't gamble. None of them go to Las Vegas. We are not located in Las Vegas. We are actually I can't tell you how many hundreds of people involved, but we're all over the world. And if we told you who all is working with us, you would say we're lying. Also, I want to point out that we threw the gauntlet down so that you, the listener, could stop going to limited hangouts. If an alternative news station does not pick this up as the biggest news since what?
Whatever last
Watergate?
No, whatever the last false flag shootings were.
Well, this is bigger than that. This is the end of the attempted overthrow of the Republic and the United States Constitution and Bill of Rights.
This is the Second American Revolution, and these are our enemies, and we must take them down. Not to say that that's all of our enemies. This is just one line of the battlefield. After we clear this out, then we will have better field of vision who needs to come down next. And mind you, in the conclave, we know where our next sites are.
Now, I like to drop breadcrumbs now and then because of the Q phenomena. And so I'm going to drop a couple breadcrumbs for you, for those of you who are really smart. And you'll probably pull out the exact documents, but they can be found very easily. I told you about these. Someone pulled them out, sent them to us. Thank you very much. Yes, but we already knew that. These agencies that train the SES use the same training course, the same films that have the same subliminal. This is basically an indoctrination. If you watch these films, you become a globalist. You become an anti-American. You become greedy for your own self's sake. That's the reason that they keep getting more money every year, though their salaries, SES salaries, are higher than anybody else's. And they give themselves the best retirement fund ever seen in history. They give them the best payroll benefits. They get awards. Those awards are money. So anybody who wants to tell you that an SES, I don't care, and I want to repeat this because this is going to be the argument I'm hoping someone has with me, to say, but wait, you can come up through the ranks to become SES through merit, through coming through that agency. Incorrect. You become a G16, 17, or 18 through the Office of Personnel Management, through the training that someone brought to our attention and actually named the site that it's trained at for the Federal Executive Institute. Same MK Ultra, CIA, corporate brainwashing. Everyone who sees these films, they're brainwashed. The innocent people teaching the course have no idea what they're probably even doing. It doesn't matter. They pay $8,000. Somebody said that taxpayers don't pay for that. That is incorrect. When you're an SES member, they pay for your training, whether it's in any of these institutes. You get, and then the person said, well, they get grants and total 100% grants. And now they also pointed out these are not-for-profit institutes. They have to be to hide their corporate espionage.
Wait a minute. So what you're saying is the taxpayer is paying for these institutes to provide training that brainwashes these people to then turn around and use their office and position against we the people.
Correct. And for greed, and to be part of this union. And they have a union, and their union is, it looks paramilitary when you are looking at it, and many of them are military. Remember, there are many SES members in the military, but if, and here's the argument, they're going to say, oh no, there's many ways to become SES. Yeah, until Obama came along, got rid of all of those people who actually came up through the ranks and became, through the Office of Personnel Management, senior executives. Make sure you know who you're talking to. You don't know what you're talking about. I would like to name names here because these arguments are nonsense. So when you hear somebody argue this, please.
What names do you want to name?
I'm not going to name them.
But what are you talking about?
A
SES
dozen
names?
people who are arguing this online right now are wrong.
Okay.
Because they haven't done their homework.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what. Why don't we just throw it down right here and say that from this point
we're not
on,
saying that.
We'll call it out.
No, we are saying to the listeners, if you're listening to them, you may be wasting time because we actually now know who pays them. And if they watch these films, they're going to think these are nice people. So if they've ever been indoctrinated, in other words, if they've ever worked at a high executive level in the government, one way or the other, whether they came up through the regular civil service merit system that went to the training called the Federal Executive Institute, which is a not-for-profit corporate imperialistic organization. It is not part of the United States government. It is an attack. It's like Serco. These are foreign agents. That's one route. Yeah, there's a route to get through hard work. But the second you take the oath, when you enter any of these higher senior executive services, you take an oath.
Like a Jesuit?
An oath to defend the service.
Well, that's what the Jesuits do.
Yeah. Well, someone pointed out that this is just like the SS. It's like the Jesuits. Yes, it is.
It's a secret society, which John F. Kennedy warned us about.
The head of the Society of Jesuits is called the Jesuit, the Superior General. The head of the Attorney Generals, the cadre of the warlord lawyers is called General. We are going after the DOJ because that's where all of this is then legally protected. So we are going a legal way. George Webb, we cannot change all their salaries back because it is legal for the SES to exist. They are a legal fifth column inside of our every single, and by the way, it's 75 agencies.
Well, it may be legal, but it's not right and it's not constitutional.
That's my point.
It
and
needs
Betsy,
to be
you nailed
challenged.
it. Anybody who reads what we have said about this and looks at the statistics, the data, does a search, proves it to themselves that it's real, that believes that there is one speck of ethicalism, one speck of honesty or morality in this is deluded. Sorry.
Well,
and you need to look closely at who these people are.
It makes you think. Remember when the Department of State was caught with all these pedophile films and everything? And so you think maybe all of this is tied up, that they're all the same kind of people?
There are over 400 people who were caught through a CIA sting who had downloaded Tor and gone onto the dark net to get child porn and paid for it with their credit cards. Hillary Clinton covered this up. We've gone over this. This is a fact. There were some hundreds in the Pentagon. There were some hundreds in the FBI, in almost every agency. When the CIA set this up, remember the dark web was set up by the CIA. It was set up to entrap people, to get people thinking that that's where you go when you're a criminal, and then they monitor it. Remember, the CIA has used the NSA to monitor everything on the internet from the second it was created. It was created as a military, as a communication device for people at universities and in the military who were creating weapons, mostly for DARPA at that point. It was weaponized against us, and then it became commercial, and now we've turned it on them because they can't turn it off because of the commercial aspect. It would stop. It would be a national security issue.
Which would affect their bank accounts, so they're not going to do that.
So now they're going to try to stop all free speech on the internet. They can filter any word they want. Okay, you know how you do a search on your computer, a search and find? Uh-huh. If they wanted to, and this is no exaggeration, look at Vault 7. And this is what the Global Engagement Center is for. And that's why it's such a lie. This is what the U.S. Digital Service is about. You can go into what Nellie Orr was using to try to get dirt on Trump, especially from Russia. You can go on and put in any word you want, if they wanted to, and eliminate it. So if they wanted to say, show me every single account that uses the word Hezbollah in it. That's one search. Guess what? You push another button, every one of those accounts is extinguished. Remember, the U.S. government owns 47% of all the lines upon which the internet is sent. This is a government utility that is being used for military purposes.
It weaponized against the very citizens that support these entities with our tax money.
And how do you think there was a pervasive plan for the takeover of the American information throughout public, private, corporate, military, all of it? It's all been taken over, folks. And it's Michael Alperovitch who has all the crypto keys. Just look that up on our site. His son is Dmitry Alperovitch, the one who actually was the hacker of the DNC. How did this happen? Because the SES members all follow orders. And according to President Obama, when he wrote an executive order in 2015 and renewed the whole thing, kicked out a bunch of them, he actually moved them all on, retired them, because when you retire them, they go into permanent retirement. So imagine, these people start off at a salary sometimes. The base salary with benefits is like the salary of the vice president, $280,000 a year, and then it goes up from there. They get that for life, no matter how many years they were SES. But they work at will. So they scare all the civil servants to think that they don't want to be in the SES. But those people all are in a union, and they are told, they do what they're told. Obama had 8,000 of them under his thumb. He appointed them. They rule every agency in the federal government. Even some go out to the states, some go out into the cities, and this must be stopped. So give them $1 and make all the people who have ever been indoctrinated by the SES very, very sad, but they are all deserving of what they will get.
Thomas, Betsy's brain is very simple and straightforward. And I was listening to George Webb and I was confused because it sounds like he says that, yeah, there's some truth here to the SES stuff, but please don't look at this DOJ 500. They're good guys. So I stepped back and go, well, now why would he do that? And then I realized, oh my gosh, those 500 lawyers at the DOJ that are all these SES people, they're throwing the rank and file under the bus so they can keep their big fat salaries. I wonder how the rank and file and SES feel about that.
Yes, and also, if any alternative sites are actually, as some accuse them of being, actual government projects that are caricatures that are the tail that wag the dog of the alternative news, if that is true, then they're paid through SES, through the Board of Broadcasting Governors, and they are then governed. And this is the other thing that people are going to argue. They're going to say, and people have come on, and they were fooled like I was, when they said, here's the review board for this particular department. And it had the list of them. Sometimes it's only a list of 5 people. Other times it's a list of 100 people. Then you go to another department, and it's completely inconsistent. Here's a list of people in that department that are part of the review board. Read the first sentence, you who keep doing that. I did that too, and I was fooled. And then other investigators did it, and they were fooled. It took geniuses to read through that first sentence. It says, this is one of the review boards. One of the review boards. So each agency does have a review board. That's not the ultimate review board. The ultimate review board is the one we found, which is secret. You couldn't even get the names. You cannot believe the sabotage, the booby traps, the tripwires that were put in all of this government information, these documents, so no one could extract it. We had to have geniuses work. Geniuses, some of the smartest people in this area in the world, and I'm not exaggerating, and I could prove it, but I ain't going to reveal who they are. They had to write programs to debug this stuff to get it for you.
That's how.
So don't tell us that we're wrong about the 500. You think we don't know every one of those 498 names? You think we don't know the other junior review boards? So if you want to criticize us, do your homework. And if you want to debate, I'm so thrilled that anyone would want to debate this question, because it would be like debating Nazi Germany, the people across from the concentration camps, as the stench is coming over their house, telling you nothing's going on over there. This is a takeover of the United States government that is almost complete. If Trump doesn't continue his brilliant strategy, which I'm basically predicting what he's going to do, he will either do this way or a few other ways. But believe me, he is going to disarm all SES. He's probably going to send someone over to be the new boss of SES, who is going to retrain all of them and basically debrief their mind control.
And they'll have to show up at work with their $1 a year salary.
Well, I'd be happy if any of them were honest that they'd work for $1 for a year because they believed in what they were doing. That would prove me wrong.
Okay, it's day 155.6, and Doug Gabriel over at American Intelligence Media has this 500 exposed. So he is very knowledgeable about what's going on inside SES and how it evolved, and how they took the core and they took the playbook from the Nazi SS and so forth in the 500. I differ from him in the next step. He talks about reducing everybody's salary down to $1, and he's kind of a fiscal conservative. So he doesn't, he's worried about the economy, the economics of this. And I'll just say this, you're going to be so mired in lawsuits if you did the $1 thing, even though that there is a provision. I just say, put everybody back to GS-16 levels for right now. Go back to the old system where you had GS-15s and 16, 17, 18. Just put everybody back to GS-16. That doesn't gore anybody's ox. It takes away all the bad stuff. And then let Trump then put people in different positions. And I'll explain later why that is. But before, and again, he's still focusing kind of on DOJ, and I'm saying DOD, and that's another difference between us. And the way I'm saying it, this almost spells NGA disguises. It almost spells the word disguises. We're going to disguise our DOD appointments into the intelligence agencies. These are going to be DISES, and again, all these contributors, I'm the dumb one, the contributors are the smart ones, show how this is done. You basically have these sponsored DOD SES folks from NGA. Now, again, I agree with Doug Gabriel on everything he says about the indoctrination down in Charlottesville, the FEI, the whole, we're going to drink the Kool-Aid. We'll always, mein Führer, the whole Dr. Strangelove thing in the wheelchair. I get all that. All that is true. All they need to do, though, is be kind of reprocessed. And we have all the stuff we need. Got the Constitution, got all the documents we need. We got the civics classes that we can, that you learn in naturalization classes, the 9th grade civics, 3 branches of government. We have all the things we need. And the people in these positions, you've got to remember, are being, there's pressure on these people. So I'm just saying, we have, we break bread with these folks every day. They're good people. They are being pressured. We talk to mainly GS-14s, GS-13s, GS-12s, GS-15s. Thomas is right. They all make $150K a year. Thomas is right. A lot of them are pushed 10 years forward on their qualifications and so forth. The key, though, is that we all get back to these documents that they have down at the archives called the Constitution, called the Declaration of Independence. everything is in the documents already. We don't need to come up with anything new. We just need to reform around that and just kind of throw out this Praetorian Guard thing. Okay, and that's the key here. And I'll give you an example. Here's General Petraeus putting out 3 more SES people. Let's just take the last one. I won't talk about Haroho or Etoile just yet, but I'll talk about Michael Powers. Michael Powers, this is Michael audit the Pentagon Powers. If you go through his background, I mean, he's basically a stinker inside the Pentagon. People hate him for penny pinching on the pencils. He's known as, I think he's known as Michael audit the Pentagon Powers. Pentagon Powers is his short handle. So there is a movement afoot, especially with Mattis and so forth. These people who've been through it, done that they know who to put in the right positions. So I'm just saying is you have a talent pool. And I'll just finish off here with Janet B. McCabe. I have no idea if she's related to Andy McCabe or not, but I will say this, she is an SES member. So we'll be looking into her background from Wellfleet, Massachusetts. As soon as I think that, I think of Whitey Bulger. I think of course, you think of Mueller, you think of Rosenstein, you think of Andy McCabe up there with JTTF, you think of the Boston Bombers, you think of University of Denver, you think of Madeleine Albright and Hillary Clinton as Shadow Secretary of State. You think of it as the brainchild of Otpor, which is resistance. You think of it as Saul Alinsky. But we can't help that. She's of Bethesda, Maryland, so we can't control what happened in Massachusetts. But I guess I get triggered when anybody ever says Boston. But anyway, I still want to know if Claude Destrier wants to debate me on a national stage at the University of Denver there at the Foreign Policy Institute.
Welcome to the American Intelligence Media. I'm your host, Douglas Gabriel, and my guest, John Barnwell, and I are just reeling from the wonderful changes in the Trump administration. Bye-bye, globalists. As we said, and so many people were so worried, John, that he was hiring the wrong people, Goldman Sachs and globalists. And what did we say? He's sucking their brains dry. He's working with globalists. He needs to know what they know. And then, bye-bye. And he did it to so many. We won't even go down the list. But, John, what do you think about this? Some of these new appointments, out with McMaster's, in with Bolton, other such things? What do you think about this new political landscape?
Well, that does not come as a surprise. I mean, he originally was interviewing Bolton for the job of Secretary of State. And after he did that and he didn't pick him, he told him that he was going to find a place for him in his administration. It's become quite a controversial topic, but that's largely due to Bolton's relationship to the project for the New American Century, which is the neocons. But the interesting thing about Bolton is that although he was tied in with those neocons, they're all a bunch of globalists. And he's not. He's not at all. He, in fact, it was David Brooks, the journalist, said that if there's anybody in the Republican foreign policy galaxy that shares President Trump's worldview, is John Bolton. So that's a pretty straight statement, and I think that it's really interesting. It's funny too, because one of the big discrepancies they had initially was Bolton's big mustache. You know, he looks like Teddy Roosevelt. You know, and Trump wanted him to get rid of the mustache, and he wouldn't do it. And he still has his mustache, and I think that Trump respects the fact that Bolton was going to stand by his principles, and he wasn't going to shave his mustache. But Bolton is one of the most qualified people in Washington, really, as far as foreign policy is concerned. I mean, geez, he's been through so many different positions. He knows everybody. He knows the complete lay of the land. And in difference from McMaster, he's not going to go off and freelance and put forward his own agenda like our former Secretary of State or our former Security Council advisor. And it's really interesting because, see, Bolton is like Trump. He doesn't really care for the UN. He doesn't care for international cabals, period. He thinks that America should be American and serve its own interests. And it's very clear the way he's positioned himself. He went against the idea of an international criminal court, which is a really good idea because it's unconstitutional for us to be beholding to international interests. He's done a lot of things within the State Department, but one of the most intriguing things is something that's kind of almost secret, in that he was identified by Mother Jones as a key member of a group called Groundswell. Now, Groundswell is real interesting because they have kind of a nice agenda. Whether or not one likes that sort of thing, at least it was pushing in the right direction, because it was wanting to look into some of the things that went on during the Obama administration regarding gun shipments and what went on in Benghazi. And so there's a lot of good things about that agenda. And plus, the group was first formed with the wife of Clarence Thomas, and it was formed in the office of Judicial Watch, which we're big fans of Judicial Watch, in that they, like us, just want to know the truth.
Yes, John, what do you think of the fact that the mainstream media is basically saying that McMaster's is out because Kelly got mad because of the leak of the information that came out of the National Security Council, which only had a few people in it, that leaked immediately to the press, that said the National Security Council told the president, do not congratulate your bunk buddy Vladimir Putin for his election. And because of that, you know, they fired McMaster. They brought in a guy who's going to ride everybody roughshod, who they believe is going to clean house because he's going to make sure there's no more leaks. Here's what they should do. Give them all lie detector tests, and when they fail, put them in jail. That's what you sign in a security agreement. I've signed 20-some of them. I know that's what it says. They can give a lie detector test to any of these people. Any leaks. Unbelievable. And by the way, Michael Horowitz is investigating leaks. He's found one. He won't tell us what it is, but it got Andrew McCabe fired. A little tiny leak. So, John, do you think that's nonsense? Because I do. I think it's nonsense that leak caused McMaster's to be fired, Bolton to be hired, and that they're going to absolutely clean house because of these unbelievable, unstoppable leaks at the highest level in our government.
Well, yeah, that's the thing, is that Washington is like a sieve with all these people that does have security clearance. I mean, I'm reminded of the recording of the phone call between Victoria Nuland and the U.S. ambassador to the Ukraine, Geoffrey Pyatt, back in 2014. And it actually, the sound recording was put on YouTube, and it's just a really kind of a cheeky conversation. And that's like, it goes into such levels of illegality that it's almost incomprehensible how reckless the people that are around Washington, especially so protected through the assurances of the administration, that they feel like they're impervious to any kind of rule of law. And that's just not the way it's supposed to be.
That is so true. That is so true, John. That is so true. Now, Trump knows Bolton. Well, first off, he was a UN ambassador. So what I like about Bolton is not only his mustache, but personally, I think he should just grow some walrus tusks, and then it would look absolutely beautiful, and I think everybody would like it. But he was ambassador to the United Nations. You can't get any more corrupt than that. So he's a corruptocrat he's a person who understands the corruption around the whole world. Nothing is more corrupt except the Catholic Church and the City of London, and perhaps a few other organizations. So in the top 10 corrupt is the United Nations. He was the ambassador, and people say there was a picture of bombs coming out of his ears, that he's such a war hawk. And I think we need a war hawk, not in the exact position he's in, because we are under an economic threat. We are in an economic war with China. And Russia's trying to keep up and get in the war. They can't quite compete, even though we helped them recently. So we are in a giant war. And if the Director of National Security doesn't know that, he's not going to understand why you use the Treasury Department as your number one tool, and you make sure that you get control of cyber warfare, because without that, you're lost. And what is happening right now? Trump just put more sanctions on Russia. Rod Rosenstein came out and said these certain Iranians had hacked us. And then there's, of course, sanctions on North Korea also for cyber hacking. So we have really the war right now supposedly was because Russia hacked into all of our electrical plants and our whole electrical grid, and supposedly got in and got the IP, the intellectual property, the information they need to understand our plants. And now Iran did that by supposedly doing phishing campaigns and getting professors of universities who must have had top secret stuff on their computers because they stole somehow tens of billions of dollars worth of IP concerning everything, special projects that were being done at universities. This is all nonsense. Rod Rosenstein, you're a liar. You're a liar. I can sit here today and tell you exactly why that is impossible and why that is complete nonsense. But what Trump did was genius. He uses these to show everyone he's not for Russia. He's putting more sanctions on them because of these reported cyber attacks. But what is he really doing? He's in a massive economic war with the world. And if he doesn't get it back on track, we were about ready to be we were being bled, and we were about ready to be gutted. But he sewed up the wounds. And now, look, he's brought, over $10 trillion back to America in a year. He's done the most amazing tax relief and tax changes ever. He just tricked them all on the omnibus budget. They don't know that he built in all the money he needs because they were looking at their own what do they call that, John? The bacon or the fat back that they put into these bills.
The pork barrel.
The pork barrel. You know, they all got their piece of the pie, right? Well, he got his piece of the pie too. They're so ridiculous. They don't even know what's going on. He's pulled the wool over all their eyes. He needs a Bolton who is not going to be like a McMaster's. McMaster's was totally a globalist, whereas Bolton is completely independent. So maybe Trump has another person on his staff that is going to follow his orders, because I don't know, he had people who wouldn't follow orders before. This has happened again and again. So I see Tillerson off. I see Tillerson off. Great. Pompeo coming up. Pompeo already went to the CIA and stopped the fifth column. He stopped payments to ISIS, to Al-Qaeda. He stopped payments to the Kurds. He stopped payments to everybody. And look, all the wars are dying out. We're winning in Afghanistan. We have a peace proposal in Afghanistan. So Pompeo did his job. So he moved up. And now he's going to do the same thing, because he and Trump really do think alike, and they're both geniuses. And so these changes that are happening, Wilbur Wright, what's his name? Wilbur Ross.
Wilbur Ross.
Yeah, Wilbur Ross. That's one of his old buddies. This is a guy so tough. He eats 10-penny nails for breakfast. I mean, that's who you need. People voted for Trump because he was the supreme example of a braggadocious capitalist who'd made it to being a robber baron and decided not to be a robber baron anymore, and to use those powers. The powers of insider trading, of knowing who is who, knowing things before they happen, which is what the Congress does, which is what lawyers do, which is what banks do. He was involved in real estate, one of the biggest speculation risk management markets in the world, and he won. And now he's turning that for us. Anyone who thinks they know his strategy is silly. We guess at it, because we follow his previous strategy patterns, and they're ingenious, but he doesn't tell you his strategy till he does it. North Korea is at a peace table. Everyone said, Trump should be impeached for the way he spoke to the head of North Korea. Look what happened. It wasn't North Korea at all. It was China. China kept feeding them during every sanction. North Korea is an extension of China. So he went and he stopped the Chinese for the first time in history. He made the Chinese follow an agreement, and he stopped the fact that they were delivering everything to North Korea. They'd actually very happy sanctions were put on North Korea because they became the sole provider. And then he caught them again and again. It went to the UN. These are the wars that Michael Bolton has come to fight, that Rex Tillerson wasn't willing to fight, and that Pompeo is willing to fight, and Ross and the others. The ones who are actually, as he said, he's finally getting his cabinet. When he gets his cabinet in place, as soon as a few more things happen, I'm not going to say what they are, but as soon as they happen, he's in for the rest of his 2 terms, and nothing's going to stop him. And as he has unprecedentedly changed everything that he is focused on, that's what's going to happen with all the other things that were on his agenda, which he, I believe, will fulfill. And when they say he didn't fulfill DACA, no, he just got millions of votes for the Republicans for the next election, because what he did, exposing the Democrats with their false nonsense. Same thing with guns, same thing with the budget, same thing with the wall, same thing with immigration. He exposed them for who they are. They're all so happy they think they won this budget. They lost this budget miserably, and not too many people tend to notice. So, John, where do you think he's going with his policies in terms of the world, especially with some of these new appointments? Well,
I think that he's gained a lot of respect. If you recall, he went to Europe and he went to one of the globalist conferences, and it's so funny because when they showed him, he's sitting at a table and there's all these elderly Norwegian economists and all these bankster guys, and supposedly they were all up in arms about him coming there, and they're all sitting at the table, and it's like he's a rock star, and they're like all excited talking to him, and they're loving it. They love this guy everywhere he goes. People like what he does, and I think that the people that are losing their patience with Trump, they're just not paying attention. They're watching the corruptocrat media that is being force-fed to us, and if you really just get beneath the hood even a little bit, you could see he's done more for this country than has been done in so long in my lifetime. I mean, it's been since Eisenhower since anybody has done as much for this country as President Trump has done, which is easy to understand. I mean, going back to what John Bolton said, he called back in 2009, he likened President Obama to Ethelred the Unready. And he said, the turn of the first millennium Anglo-Saxon king, whose reputation for indecisiveness and unsuccessful effort tried to buy off Viking raiders and made history's paradigmatic weak leader. And so all you got to do is think of Obama coming off of a plane and there's no red carpet. They have him basically come down like a cargo ladder. And so that shows you the regard that he was held in. And yet he still envisions himself as being this powerful, important world stage figure. And I admit he's pretty good at public speaking, but as far as the way in which they devolved politics in Washington, it's purely criminal. They handle it as if it was a syndicate, and that's what's so disturbing. And that's why when I pointed you in the direction of looking up the Senior Executive Service and the parallel support group from London, Serco, which is running our patent and trademark office and also is running our visa offices. We have something going on here that's international, that has to be weeded out. All you have to do is look at the Obama administration. When he came in, it was Citigroup that picked in advance of his coming into office. They picked his cabinet for him as suggestions, as they put it. He accepted every single one of them. And that's kind of disturbing when one of the largest shareholders on the bank is the prince that was recently arrested and allegedly hung upside down. And so when you look into this further and you see that it was the Saudis' money that paid for Obama's his Harvard education, Harvard Law School, and all that. So we don't need all these foreign interests inserting themselves into our government. And so with Obama, with Saudi Arabia, and through Christine Marcy and Hillary Clinton, the insertion of Serco, which is a British company. Then it's headed by Soames, who happens to be a grandson of Winston Churchill. And it's very disturbing when you have the report coming out. For example, the shooter in Texas, there was trouble because nobody received the report that this guy was trouble from, he was in the Air Force, right? And all the trouble he got into the Air Force. And it turns out, and I've not seen it reported most anywhere, but Serco was running the personnel department at that Air Force base. And so did they circumvent getting the information out regarding this guy's record of beating his wife and child, and that the guy was nuts? I mean, so there's all this kind of shadowing going on, the shadow government that we've been trying to point everybody's attention to. And I perfectly agree with you. I think that we have to focus on the senior executive service. I understand there are people coming forward and they're saying, but I know people, they're nice people. Yeah, okay. Well, you know, there was nice people that got stuck working at Dachau too. And I don't want to put a bunch of shade on, because a lot of these people that are inserted into the senior executive service are young people that are given jobs that are 10 years beyond their experience and 10, 15, 20 years beyond their expected pay grade. And so they're really grateful, and they're totally willing to follow the agenda that's being spoon-fed to them, which is coming out of the deep state. They're in the secret government, and they're receiving instructions from the deep state. The deep state is corporate. The secret government is the senior executive service and the related government agencies that are allowing corporate interests to direct Washington. The lawmakers, it seems like they never make laws anymore. All that happens is three-letter organizations are creating regulations and so forth, supposedly interpreting the law. But what they do, if you dig down under the hood of the SES documents, they created all this stuff that nobody knows about.
2 points to add on to what you said. Obama is breaking, isn't it, the Logan Act? Because he's out doing political activities all the time in opposition to a sitting president's administration, which is absolutely illegal. So he continues a resistance, he and Valerie Jarrett, from the bunker that still receives the presidential daily intelligence report. That's the reason Trump doesn't use them. So Obama should actually, if I'm not mistaken, he's out, and what is he doing? He's actually trying to represent America. Illegal. Wrong. Now, let's go to Serco. As you point out, Serco, not only it has thousands of contracts in hundreds of departments and agencies and throughout all of America. They do billions and billions of dollars a year in business with us. They handle the most sensitive data and information, as you pointed out. They are the preview to all patents. So every patent in America goes to a British company to see if the Brits might want it. But remember, we share all of our intel with everybody, so it's just consistent with the way that it is. So what you see here is Serco is an outside country which is attacking us through corporate means, and they're using members of the SES to say, yeah, everything corporate's good. Just, status quo, same old bureaucratic slow walk. Yeah, but when you want something done, all of them, They all, their heels click together and they do what they're told because the way they're paid. The way they're paid is so unethical that anyone who would support any part of the SES, I would love to debate them. But anyway, the point is Christopher Steele, another British agent who created the fake dossier, which is part of a present attempted Soros coup against our own president. And we are still letting a Mueller investigation, which is the DOJ FBI collusion that he's supposed to be investigating because he's a Russian dude. Uranium One. When you say Uranium One, you need a picture of Andrew McCabe, Hillary, and Robert Mueller on that meme. Because, and Bill, because Bill got 200 million. Hillary only got 145 million. She was a little bit slacking in that one, but don't worry, she'll catch up. So what we have here is the worst colluders calling him a colluder when there is no law for collusion. We have the worst criminals in the department that's supposed to stop criminals trying to find a crime that Trump or anybody he knows ever committed that had anything to do with Russia, or even a word that begins with the letter R, because that's the letter that Russia word begins with. So that's close enough. So what we're seeing here is the worst case of overthrow of a government from the inside out. The SES is the fifth column. They are our enemy within. Don't believe us. Go look at the 33,000 documents we've already dumped, and they're coming in by the tens of thousands. So, Christopher Steele, British agent, worked with Ukrainians, Russians. He was in Italy. He was paid by the FBI. He worked with the DOJ. He was their standard idiot that they used whenever they needed fake information. He is the equivalent in England of what Fusion GPS is here, which is nothing more than a propaganda, illegal, yellow journalism, oppositional group that should be outlawed because they are in direct opposition to election laws, for instance, or the SEC, any law you name. They represent people who are breaking laws. And we know this because John Podesta and Hillary Clinton paid Fusion GPS to do the illegal dossier, and then to have the Sidney Blumenthal's friend, Sidney Shearer, Courtney Shearer, add his part, and then Comey added his part, Brennan added his part. The dossier is an accumulation of 5 or 6 people's efforts. It's amazing, the collusion, conspiracy, the framing of a sitting president as well as the election corruption. So my question to you is, can we get Serco? Oh, by the way, Serco is just like the Brits. Whenever they need to do something in America, they use one of the Five Eyes, their intelligence agency. So who was it that was actually monitoring Trump and Trump Towers? That was the British Secret Service using an office in the NSA in Fort Meade, Maryland. This came to light. It was in the news everywhere. So we know, but is anyone speaking of that? That the Brits wiretapped Trump and we have proof of that? No, that didn't come out in the Mueller investigation. So what we're seeing here, John, is the tentacles of Serco in every single data collection element of America, including military, top secret, whatever. And then we see the SES implementing it. And so you pointed that out. So it's like the deep state. Say that again. You say the shadow government is, SES, and the deep state is who?
Okay,
That's the corporations you said. That's right.
Yes, yeah. The deep state, technically, you would say, is the corporations, and also you have the public foundations and the think tanks and people like Yoda, Marshall, that are working. They're not in the employ, although we're not sure because he's probably still getting money from SES or something like that.
No doubt.
But if you go back into the early days of the SES, it started with Jimmy Carter, as you know, and kind of the mastermind behind it was Zbigniew Brzezinski, and working with the kind of School of Foreign Policy out of Georgetown University. But at the core of this, you got Christine Marcy, who actually technically is the founder, and she is the sister of Field McConnell. And I have to do a shout out to Field, McConnell, and David Hawkins of Able Danger, because it's on their research that I was able to point you in the direction for you and Michael McKibben and everybody to do such stellar research, so that now it's going viral and everybody's finally talking about this, although Field and David have been talking about it for a good 10 years now. But at the core of this is Christine Marcy, Janet Reno, Jamie Gorlecki, and Hillary Clinton. And those are the core women within the forming of this. And true, I'm sure there's lots of nice people that are involved in this. They don't even know, because like most operations in intelligence, it centers around a need-to-know basis. And somebody hands you a briefcase, you don't know what's in it. They just say, oh, give this to Joe, and you give it to Joe, and you just involved yourself in something that you had no idea that maybe there was top secret documents in the briefcase or anything. I mean, we see it all in the movies. The point is that we don't want all this secret stuff going on. We don't want government agencies that nobody's ever heard of making major policy decisions for us. We have a government that I believe is based on what I consider to be inspired documents: the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence. We have something here, and we came very, very close to losing it into a globalist cabal through the hands of Hillary Rodham Clinton. And so we just dodged a bullet.
Boy, that's for sure. And when you talk about the SES, you're also talking about the SIS, which was founded at the same time, but it was called the Senior Cryptological Service, because they were going to pay cryptologists more money. Okay, makes sense. Oh, yeah. Jimmy Carter, yeah, we're going to get experts in these fields. Well, they're not experts now, and they rotate between fields, so any expertise they have is actually not being used in many cases, and they're rotating in and out of top-secret jobs that they didn't have to get a clearance for, that they have a top-secret clearance for. You see, they can apply and not even give their proper name, their nationality. We've already demonstrated all of that by showing that they circumvent all rules. They basically are invisible. And the one that concerns NSA, and it was Michael Hayden who demanded that the SES come into our intelligence services, even of the NSA, which before were run by military people who were bound by the Uniform Code of Military Justice, some honor, and will go to jail if they do anything. If they do 1/1 billionth of what Hillary did, that person in the NSA and the military would be in jail for the rest of their lives. I know. I was there. I signed those agreements. So the Senior Intelligence Service, now 65% of all intelligence gathered in America is gathered by corporate intelligence, all of whom are paid through the SES, of course, and also terrible, terrible black budget, horrible hidden agendas and budgets that go to like Lockheed Martin. Lockheed Martin's one of the is the largest intelligence agency working for America, larger than NSA itself. So we have sold out. And so those people who say, you know, oh, they're nice or there's sections that are okay, no, it all has to be changed. It was designed as a takeover. It was a design to take down the civil service and to replace it with the Office of Personnel Management, the office that pays people, and another office, and then the fourth office, which was secret, nobody hardly knew it existed, the Senior Executive Service, what they call the Keystone. And in the middle of that image of a keystone, which is on their flag, and they take oaths, and many of them are military, ex-military, ex-CIA, ex-intelligence, who then get these jobs because they pay better, and they get a lifetime, in many cases, they have no tenure necessary to get a lifetime payment of what their payment is when they're assigned as an SES. And there are two separate boards, including, in some cases, 600 people who review their work in a yearly performance review board that every year gives every one of them a raise and gives them awards, which means more money. So you tell me that you knew that you were working in an agency like that, and you're just a good old, nice, sweet, moral, ethical person, and I will say, maybe you missed something. Maybe the subliminal MK Ultra type program that they put you through, Senior Executive Institute training and the Federal Senior Institute training, which people have already sent us documents that show that they use MK Ultra, old style MK Ultra tests and manipulation and mind training for these people. And then you're going to tell me that you work for a good agency. I'm going to tell you perhaps your mind has been twisted. Perhaps you have been completely indoctrinated so that you can't think. Okay, under those circumstances, you need to be, I guess, go through some kind of therapy to get out of the indoctrination you went through to think that you should sell out America to corporate interests and know it. To take orders from the person who put you there, which was Barack Obama. 8,000 of you, 8,000 of the 9,000 or so, could be 10, could be more, we don't know. We are finding out every day new information about the SES, and every day it's more shocking than what we found out before. And so we have people who are upset with us, and we're sorry about that. But, you know, when it comes down to it, for instance, a John Bolton. Did I call him Michael Bolton at one point? If I did, I apologize. John Bolton. He's a professional. When he gets hired, he may be SES. I would be shocked if Rex Tillerson was an SES. I haven't looked them up. John Podesta was SES. Why was John Podesta SES as a chief of staff, which is the chief of staff of the White House has under the general schedule a specific pay scale, right? Why was he SES? So he could make more money, but also because he couldn't get clearances because he was a lobbyist of the worst type with China, with Russia, with Ukraine, with all of them. He and his brother, the worst lobbyists in D.C. He couldn't get one. And as we pointed out, oh, yeah, anybody Hillary wants, including Sidney Blumenthal, who was turned down again and again because of his corruption, he couldn't get one. Oh, no, she got him one. She just appointed him as an SES member. These people don't even come to work in some cases. They do absolutely zero work because their only work is to obstruct and to follow orders. So that's what we're dealing with here, John. And so when we're talking about the changes around Trump and those appointments, those people, if they have to be, what do they call it when they go before Congress, to be not
interrogated.
Yes, during their hearings and they're interrogated, they're asked all kinds of things. And those are also SES members, and those are presidential appointments. There's a bunch of them. So don't go and do your research and come back and tell us, oh, presidential appointees are not really SES, and then blah, blah, blah. No, wrong. John Podesta, presidential appointee, chief of staff. No one has any idea how much money he made. He probably still has his top secret security clearance, though his brother is, on the run. They closed down their lobbying firm, certainly in the top 5 worst lobbyist firms in D.C., and they hadn't registered as foreign agents, and yet he's fine. And I wouldn't doubt that he's an SES member. He went to the Obama White House 114 times and signed in. How many times did he go that he didn't sign in? So what I'm talking about here is, do not go to the search engine that says SES, plug in somebody, and believe that that's conclusive. There are many ways they hide these things. Many, many, many ways. And the more we look, the more corruption we find. Sorry, John, I got on a diatribe. I'm in a war against anyone who wants to defend SES. I apologize. I was asking you about Serco. Can we get Serco?
Well,
can we get SES out of our government? Is it too late?
Yeah. Well, no, it's not. And by no means am I defending SES. I was the one who sicked you on there because I know you're such a pit bull, and that once you start, you don't give up.
Did you think I was attacking you? Because I wasn't. But that's no. What people are saying. You attacked me by what you said. And I'm going, I didn't mean to attack you. I meant to attack the SS. And anyone who wants to defend them, come on forth and show us who you are, because that's what Trump does to all of these people. Yes, he puts a Michael Cohen globalist in that position, and in the end, he fired him in front of the world by doing what? Calling him a globalist 3 times and saying, he's a globalist, but I like him. He's a globalist. He's got to go. I like him. He's a globalist. Get the F out of here. After I sucked your brain clean, and I know now all of your rat lines, and I know the secret cheating ways that they manipulate the market. Thank you for telling me about Goldman Sachs' 27% returns on their investments in the USSR. That means Russia and all the satellite countries. Thank you for telling me where the dirt was. Thank you for helping me put people on the 1,000-person list that I now have sanctions on through the U.S. Treasury Department that nobody seems to know anything about. Thank you, Mr. Globalist. Thank you, Rex Tillerson, for showing me the way that the real globalist network works. Who better than the head of Exxon to show you the largest corruption in the world, okay, in terms of just money and oil? So, what's he doing? He's sucking their brains dry like a vacuum cleaner that just leaves nothing. Just all gray matter is sucked into that Electrolux. He analyzes it, and then he, with a smile on his face, says, "I like the guy." You're fired. But he doesn't have to say you're fired.
Yeah, he likes her suit too, But
he likes Scaramucci's suit, but he's got to go.
I have to give a little shout to George Webb, because he's one of the few people out there that's willing to spend the time to try to dig into these documents and get some real research going, and he's come up with some interesting vantage on this. He looks at the SES like the Praetorian Guard, which was established by the first emperor of Rome, and it was closed down by what's his name, Constantine. So for 300 years, the Praetorian Guard was this elite group of people that were handpicked, and their job is to protect the agenda of the emperor, although it became corrupted, and then they started deciding they were the important ones and removing emperors and doing all kinds of corruption to where they were benefiting from the activities of the empire. I guess the thing, it's like an SS type thing. It's like a Praetorian Guard. Napoleon tried to reinstitute a Praetorian Guard in his empire. What happens with these kinds of things is you end up with this oligarchy. That's what it is, and that's why it's so closely parallels the activity of the SS, because the SS was the governmental organization that protected the interests of the corporate cabal, and that's what this is doing. Now, even though some of these people might be nice people, and there are actually some people in here that are I'm sure getting some good things done, the whole system stinks. And this is not the way we do things in America. We don't have secret pay schedules, and they release documents and they say, oh, we redacted all the SES members, and then they don't say anything about it. And it's like, what?
What?
I mean,
that's right. They sure did. Every SES. What he's saying, folks, is the Department of Justice redacted every SES name in the love notes between Strzok and Page. 50,000 of them. They released 372 of them, and every personal remark was redacted. Every attachment, every other name that they wanted, but they said specifically every name of every SES member was redacted. Now, why would they say that unless they're just protecting those little lovers? John, what you say about the Praetorian Guard, it's the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps that were these hackers who hacked into America. Oh, isn't that just so sad? Wait, we control the internet. We could stop anything coming from anywhere we want. We can target anywhere we want and disable them from one day to the next. Do you remember when Anonymous first came out? They said, since you won't stop the Islamic, what I call fascists, but the radical Islamic terrorists in America, who are in America with their sleeper cells, and you won't turn them off because they are advertising all over the internet, we will tomorrow if you don't today. And the next day they did. And oh, look, they turned in the names, the IP sites, the locations, everything you could ever want. And this was done by Anonymous. And guess what happened? Those people left the country. Why can't we do that? Because we pay those people. We pay Al-Qaeda. We pay ISIS. That's what Obama and Hillary do. They pay the enemy, so there's an enemy, so there's a war, so that the SES and Serco and the military-industrial complex has lots of money. So, sorry, that's an aside about the Iranian government. I don't believe for 1 second. Not 1 second do I believe that these false accusations about hacks. They're as bad as Mueller's accusations about the IRA, Putin's hackers who interfered with the election. None of them even worked for him in 2016. They all admit it. They've been interviewed. The guy, please don't get me started. My question is, really, more or less, do you think that Trump is winning the international scene? Because that's what Bolton is going to help him with. He's going to tell him how to defeat China through the UN. And I could speculate on that all day. I just want to know your opinion about that. Do you think Bolton is really going to move forward the international agenda and this agenda of, surveilling all Americans and FISA warrants and the corruption that is just rife in the intelligence community? Do you think he's going to be able to get a hold of that, John?
Well, I tend to agree with Joel Skousen, who's really quite a brilliant analyst on those types of matters, and he's a former Marine. And there was, you can look him up, Skouzin, I believe. But he gets into explaining that in a lot of ways, Bolton is an excellent choice regarding this. But I agree with him. The idea that you can just go in there with troops and get anything done in Korea is absolutely the most terrifying proposition that anybody could think of. You're talking about Korea. We have about 1.3 million people in our military. Well, they have 1.2 million. And look at how small. I mean, everybody's military trained over there. They're in that regard. They kind of resemble Israel in that everybody's involved in the military. They've been building bunkers and fortifications ever since 1949. So they're totally hunkered down, and they're the paper tiger that China has been pushing in our face all these years to maintain a dynamic tension without bringing the heat upon themselves. So they have rat lines into China for supplies and all of that. Now we could blockade them and keep them from getting resources, and it would slow it down considerably. I'm hoping that things can come from these talks. Rex Tillerson, just before the talks were to come about, didn't think that we were anywhere near any kind of a result. I'm so hesitant to talk on all this because it's something that I think that Bolton and Trump together, that's basically the best shot we have in regarding that. And it's interesting because on CNN they even said if President Trump can solve this, he'll go down as a great president. Now, if you can imagine hearing those words on CNN.
That is so true. It is absolutely historic. And the most historic thing of all is he's not going to solve it by giving the enemy who threatens to blow us up with nuclear bombs billions of dollars, like we did in Iran, like actually we did in Syria, though most people don't know that, like we've done everywhere. Pakistan, anytime somebody threatens us, we go, oh, no, please don't threaten us. Here's billions of dollars to keep your program going. $4.5 billion was given to North Korea by us after Russia gave them almost equivalent of $10 billion for developing their nuclear program. And then we're surprised? No, here's the shock. The shock is that somebody's going to speak the truth out of the White House and say, I ain't doing no deal with you, dude. I ain't giving you no more money, little Kim, little Rocket Man. You ain't getting no more money from us. And I could blow you off the face of the earth with one bomb. Your entire thing wouldn't take a bunker bomb, okay? Wipe out their entire nuclear program with one bunker bomb. No problem. I could do it with lasers. I could do it with accelerated particle beams. I have so many weapons, Mr. Little Kim Rocket Man, that, dude, you should give up. No one ever believed him. We can tell you where those missiles came from. We can tell you who's actually behind all of that. But here's what little Kim really wants: to merge with South Korea to get a piece of the American manufacturing pie. Why? And why doesn't this happen? Because China wants our manufacturing. They're so upset that South Korea has taken over. They're so upset that Taiwan wants to actually be independent. They're so upset that we noticed that they killed 20 million Tibetans. We're so upset that they've taken over the South China Sea. They are criminals. They'll never, ever, they just laid out a 100-year plan. Believe this or not. We sit in an age when people want to say, oh, don't put tariffs on China. They just put out a 100-year plan where Chairman Xi says he's going to take over the world. In 100 years, it will all be Chinese, and the plan is in great detail. Now, does anybody doubt what we have been yelling now for months and months? China is our enemy. Everything they do is counterfeit. Everything they do is a lie. Everything they do is an economic attack against America. That's what Trump is facing. He can't even tell anybody because there's probably not enough people who would understand that, who actually have the capacity to understand that. And here's the deal. China said, wait a second. We got trillions of dollars when we did the deal with the Clintons. All we had to do was put Hillary on Walmart's paying board, and Hillary got a little bit of, got a penny on every dollar, and hey, you know, it was great. You know, it's been wonderful. We had, 65% of American manufacturing for household products, you know, and all of these kind of things directly from China, and most of that from Taiwan. And it was only because China has taken over Taiwan that they got that money, and now they want it, and South Korea wants it, and North Korea wants a piece of the pie. What don't people understand about that? Do they not know what caused the Korean War? It's called China. Is their idea any different than it was then? Not one iota, except that it's much more vicious, it's cyber-oriented, and they have ideas that they really wanted to sterilize all of America by taking over 5G, with Broadcom taking over Qualcomm. And they were basically, in their plan, was to reduce us to nothing in America, so they just get on their ships and come over here. This is what they plan, and this is who we do business with. These are people who kill their children because they're not a boy or a girl, or because they had 3 children instead of 2 children. These are people that you can't even comprehend the way they think. And then we criticize our president, who's the first person ever to make any gain with China, maybe, I'm going to qualify this, maybe in history. No one's ever conquered China. You go into China, you become more Chinese than the Chinese, including the Japanese. No one needs to remind me of that. Of course they became more Chinese than the Chinese. That's what always happens. That's what's going to happen to us. That's why Henry Kissinger said, China, China, China. That's why I say John Bolton knows what's going on with China. He knows there's a war, and he knows it needs to be treated like a war. And that was told to us clearly by the Council on Foreign Relations leader, Henry Kissinger, out loud as soon as Trump got elected. He says, I'm warning Trump. He needs to understand that China now controls the world. They're going to take over our economy, and we need to give them all of our intellectual property, and we need to be the military arm for the clash of nations, and we need to let them be the entire manufacturing arm, even for those missiles. But no, it's the Russians who control the uranium for the missiles. But China was controlling the microchips throughout our entire military. Trump came in and said, pull them all. They all have backdoors. They all have 0 day. They all are tainted with espionage. And this has been proven. And when he went over there, it was a war. Everybody thought it was lovely. He came back with $850 billion worth of deal. No, he did not. We've gone into this before. I say Mr. Bolton is the best person that could be chosen for the job. And not as Secretary of State. And not in defense. But for what really controls all of that, intelligence. Because Bolton is against corporate intelligence. He's like Flynn. They want to go back to nothing but military intelligence. And when that happens, then Trump will begin to listen to intelligence. Because until then, it's nothing more than a bunch of corporate globalist, parasitic, scumbag I don't know what. Plus, I want to apologize a little bit because you just gave a nice shout out to George Webb, and Webb does, the Imran Awan stuff that he does, and much of the stuff that he does is absolutely premier. I threw down a gauntlet with every single alternative news agency that said, if you defend SES, I'm going to come after you like a bulldog. And so I think I might have come after him. I want to apologize, but I also want to apologize for anyone who might think that what we're saying isn't true. No matter who says it, go and research. Do it yourself. George Webb, 2 or 3 days ago, put out a list where he went to our search engine and searched everyone to see who was SES. And he had the longest, most beautiful list that any of us have created so far. And it had all of our favorite criminals on it, all the people involved in the crimes that he's been investigating for all this time, the ones that he's been calling out. If they work for the government, he pointed out they were SES. So George, like John Barnwell just said, good work. Keep being that blue tick hound dog that is chasing down that squirrel, because, you are out there on the streets. You are out there committing yourself as a patriot to try to figure this stuff out. And as stuff comes to light, each bit of truth can be turned into a truth bomb to chase these trolls out while the sun is shining, because then they'll all turn to stone. So, John, any further words you want to give advice to our president in terms of some of his new elections, some of the new appointments, or any of his cabinet positions, or anything he's doing that you also want to comment on?
Well, I think that I've been criticized again and again for referring to Trump playing 3- and 4-dimensional chess, and it's proving to be true. And in fact, I think he's even segued into playing the glass bead game.
Okay, it's day 156. This is part 12, and I had no idea I would be making films this late into Saturday night. But I just listened to the last missive from John Barnwell and also Doug Gabriel at American Intelligence Media, and I have to say I'm always just incredibly impressed by AIM, their depth of field. I mean, if they didn't work in the intelligence business, I don't know who did. John Barnwell just sounds, like he's looking over Alan Dulles' shoulder saying, Alan, you're going to subvert the country if you do that. You're going to subvert the country if you do this. Don't do it. But what I liked about Doug Gabriel is he is this pit bull, and I love the ferocity and just engagement that he takes on everything with. And John Barnwell, I look at as this kind of deep analyst, a person who looks at these situations and sees things over the full flight of history, the full flight of time, with all the operations, starting with Dulles, even before that, OSS operations going all the way through. So they have comparative law as a degree. Well, John Barnwell to me is comparative intelligence operations. He can just summon these histories of the intelligence operations, not only of the U.S. intelligence operations, but he's well versed and deep in MI6 and British intelligence before that, et cetera. So that's what I love. I mean, now I know that John Barnwell knows who I am, which is quite I don't know. I'm smiling here in Washington D.C. And Doug made an apology at the end of this film here, which I would encourage everybody to listen to. This is just the best stuff. These are just the experts. This is just refined down to only the crystalline diamonds that you get in this kind of a report. But what I really got from Doug was, I think he's understanding me a little bit more. I'm not an apologist for the SES. I'm more of a surgeon of the SES, trying to cut asunder what is not really worth examining and then focusing in like a pathologist on the cause of death or the thing that has caused this death of this democracy. So I think he's understanding me a little bit better, and I'm understanding him a little bit better. I think the debate now is moot. I think the debate now is moot because we both understand each other so much better. And, you know, I must say I'm a little starstruck that John Barnwell knows my name. But we all shall move forward in this great open source endeavor, because I have said from the beginning that I'm more the maybe the hound over here, the blue tick hound, as he called me. You know, the nice guy dog who just sniffs the trail. And this is Doug Gabriel, who is the bastion of being the pit bull of democracy. But together, we are going to deliver the winning hand here, the four aces over kings. And I do believe with this open source intelligence network, this cooperative effort, we will win over the deep state.